Good morning, Reaper peeps. How you guys doing? See, Crow and Echo is already here. Oh, we got a Margaret. We got a D. Clearman. We've got a Sethany. Is it Sethany or Kethany? One of the two. And we have a Casmania 7. Sethany. All right. How's everyone doing this morning? Hopefully well. Hey, Numbat, how you doing? We like that you guys are here right as the show starts. Kind of helps us, feels like that neighborly hello, that initial start when you first walk into work, and you actually have coworkers that are kind of nice and reasonable and like to see you there, and they greet you. It's kind of like that. You guys are those people. Villagers at the gate. There you go, D. Clearman. You know what, Margaret? I was just telling Anne off stream before we started that my cat was being a tyrant this morning. Actually, she's already been fed and everything, but she's decided she's gonna make both my fiance and I's life this morning hell. She just wants to mess with everything, yell at us, run around the house. She's being crazy.
Hey Reaper people, good morning. Welcome to Reaper Pro Tips with Anne, your host and disembodied voice, Justin, I read an article in, I think, the New York Times, and it was an editorial from a cat that was pretty much telling us all to leave. Like, the dog's editorial was like, stay home forever! I love this social distancing thing. And the cat's editorial was, would you just get out of my house? So I think that's what your cat is trying to say.
Oh, this damn cat.
That's why, every time I think about getting a cat, I'm just like, no, not again, not for a while. Not for a while. A Kiri is enough, and so far I was worried, everybody, that we might have another dog emergency today, but so far everything appears to be all right. Shh, don't tell anybody. Don't wake anybody up. Don't wake the small dog up. But yeah, good morning. All right, Margaret and Curico and Stephanie and Andrew Cat and Sentimental and Shui Boots and Astley the Monk and Nomad Zeke and Mistip and Image of Betrayal. And I know I saw D. Clearman up there before. Hello. Good morning. I am pretty peppy this morning because I got really good sleep last night. So I'm like, I have energy. I don't know if I have brain cells, but I have energy. Yeah, social cats are weird, right? Sentimental minis. That's what my cat was too. He was a very social cat, and he always wanted to be where I was, just like a dog. I'm gonna mix up some colors. So today, guys, we're just gonna do a bunch of stuff on Spirit Beast because I'm sick of Spirit Beast having partial areas done, and I just want to work on stuff. So we're gonna do a whole bunch of stuff, and it's gonna be kind of a recap for people who have been watching over the past 4 or 5 days, however long I've been working on Spirit Beast. And hopefully you won't mind, and it will maybe allow you to ask more questions about an area that I covered previously. And I'm just going to set up my colors here. In the meantime, if you have any other particular questions, feel free to fire away. Morning, Daffodware. Morning, Jedi Gerald. All right. Edgerjai, hi. All right, I'm going to switch to minicam. We're just going to rock forward and do this thing. So yeah, I want to work on the inside of the wings, for example, which we haven't done yet, and do them paler than the outside, just like a falcon's wing. Most birds actually are a little paler, I guess, on the underside of the wing. I want to get my white. So once again, using a very limited palette on this model, But I'm just going to set up everything in advance today because I feel like being prepared. Otherwise, how are y'all doing? This is Thursday. We're almost to Friday of a holiday weekend. I hope you are all excited to go out and grill things. Because, you know, they have not banned grilling things. You can still go out and grill things for Memorial Day. So at least we can have one holiday that's kind of usual, right, Justin? We can go outside and grill and drink beer.
Well, I mean, you guys can. It's supposed to, for here, it's supposed to be absolutely thunderstormy all day long.
Oh, noes. Our thunderstormies got postponed again. So it's like, instead of getting hit, well, we got hit in April too, though. I mean, when I was still there, it was pretty rainy. So that's not fair. Like, thunderstormies should go away eventually.
I agree, but we've just been slammed.
Oh, really?
Like,
so
it looks like, yeah. In fact, it's even overcast right now. It rained a little bit last night. It looks like we're going into monsoon season.
Eek. Casmania, I mean, I'm not going to guarantee it because, you know, eventually I feel kind of guilty and want to, want to work on something else for you guys. So I'm not just recapping stuff I've done before, but there's so much on this I haven't even talked about, like doing the finer fur texture and stuff. So no guarantees. The more I do on stream, the more likely I will spend my own time to paint the mini to completion. But as Reaper is not really paying me for the model, that's one of the reasons that I don't often paint a model to completion on stream. Since I'm no longer a staff painter like full time, I only get paid for the time I'm on stream. So then I have to ask myself, well, why am I spending this time painting the model? So it's kind of like that. So yeah, I guess if I wanted to make you guys watch me paint the Spirit Beast all day, every day, but I feel like that this show is not really about that. This show is about more technique, and mastering techniques, paint consistency, and learning different techniques on different models. So I do want to cover short fur. I do want to cover the underside of the wings. I want to cover the things I haven't covered, like tail. And I do want to put a base on it. At that point, it'd be really close to done. So, yeah, maybe. We'll see. I have to think of my bottom line now that I'm no longer, like, full-time at Reaper. So it's like...
Also, Ms. Ann.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to interrupt you, but I think your focus is on the table.
Yeah, I know. I'm not really doing anything yet except mixing paint, so...
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
Yeah, I was. No, I was about to focus, but I was still like mixing up all my paint. So, there we are.
Oh, that's nice and sharp.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of thunderstorms. Looks like everybody's getting thunderstorms except me because I'm living in a crazy area where weather apparently doesn't exist.
I mean, yeah. Mm-hmm. I imagine it's going to feel pretty much the same year round. I mean, it might feel a little different.
Actually, South Bay does get hot in the summer. Like, not Texas hot, but we do get in the 90s, apparently. So I'm looking forward to that because warm.
Yeah.
All right. So real quick, I'm just going to block in some of this white on the legs and stuff that I didn't finish before because I always wanted this minty area to go more white. And I'm going to use the brush stroke that goes in the direction the fur would grow, remember. My blue tack is not being, my sticky tack is not being very sticky this morning. And when I get down to the legs here, where I did the dark area before, I'm going to actually use a brush stroke that joins up with that. So I did a lot of vertical strokes because the fur usually grows more or less vertically with a little bit of a slant backwards on legs. So now I can take the fine strokes that I had with this dark blue and I can kind of marry in some white strokes into that, and that will reinforce the appearance of fur. So where I got kind of rough, like I did on this front knee, now I can come in with my white and kind of put some real fine strokes in there, and probably want to go right at the opposite direction here. And kind of blend it in a little bit so it's not quite so choppy looking. And it makes more of a fade like it would appear. So that's another reason to come in. And the reason I'm going in from this direction is that when I start putting my brush stroke down, it's a lot finer. So if I want a fine blend, that's what I start with. If I do it the other way, like I was starting out with, when I lift up my brush, it leaves a little puddle. And that means that you're not going to get a blend there. So if I do a stroke like this, I leave a puddle there, it's going to leave a dot. It's not going to be blended in. So when you're doing a blending technique where you want one area to blend into each other, you always want to start your brush stroke in the other area, the blending area. Hey, Motor City Ray, good to see you. Hey, Crispies. Super, I'm glad I was helpful. Awesome. Yeah, Monterey is really beautiful. When I went there, David took me before I moved out here, Miss Imp, and it is a really cool and beautiful city, but it was pouring rain. Like, it was raining nonstop when we went. So we did the, 17-mile drive was it, down to Monterey, and we actually stayed in a bed and breakfast just outside of Monterey. I went to the aquarium, and then we walked around and saw art galleries. We actually bought a painting that trip, because there were some really nice artists in the art galleries. But yeah, it was raining, so I had to end up buying I didn't bring my raincoat, so I bought a rain poncho to wander around Monterey in. But yeah, it seems like a really nice city. It was actually my father's favorite city. He always said if he had lots of money, he'd retire to Monterey. And I can see why. Both my parents golf, so, that's also a big incentive there, since golfing is big there.
So, and if the weather gets too rough here, I can move in with you, right?
Yeah, golfing around here is great.
We'll just we'll just make a streamer apartment.
Yeah, right. David and I will just build a streamer cubby hole out on our deck, right?
Sounds perfect to me. Yeah.
Well, people live in their vehicles here all the time because it's so bloody expensive.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's a thing. Like, I did not realize that it was a thing until I started coming out here frequently. But yeah, there's a bunch of like old motorhomes and stuff. Like, people just buy an old camper or motorhome, and they'll just there's parking wherever there's like free parking. That's not hourly. What am I looking for? I'm working for a word. Posted by the city, then they can just park all day. And so there are people actually living in their vehicles out here because it's too bloody expensive. Which is, to me, kind of interesting because a lot of them are in tech jobs, and so they're making a lot of money, relatively speaking. But I was reading an article about it written by somebody who had done it for a while, but it was still in a high-paying tech job, and pretty much was just like, yeah, essentially, it allowed me to save up a crap ton of money. It wasn't terrible. I learned the ins and outs. It's not really looked down upon here because a lot of people do it, and I was able to save up a lot more money than if I was paying, thousands of dollars in rent a month. So I guess it's depends on the motivation. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a whole different culture. I do like the culture out here. Yeah, I know. That's how I felt, Gimli, when I was still in Texas, that we had a lake in our backyard like that. It was Lake Kirieville. Kiri did not like it. She likes grass. Does not like a pool of water. Alrighty, so now we got some of that white blacked in. I'm just going to black in a little white on this back leg, just to make it look like I didn't ignore it. It's the interior, so it can be in shadow, but the part that I can actually see, I want to work on. Let's see here. Alright, so let's talk about doing the short fur then. Let's see here. Yeah, people want to live out here and can't afford the rent. Yeah, LA. Yep. Yeah, California. Well, and if you're gonna be homeless, quote unquote, except for your vehicle, in a temperate climate that's really nice, I guess that California is one of your targets. Hey, good morning, Otter Mama. I just saw you jumped in. Yeah, I will not move back to Wisconsin, Heather. I grew up in Wisconsin. Wisconsin winters destroy me. I am very sensitive to cold. I can take heat, which is why I lived in Texas very happily for 17 years. But I was born here, actually born in the exact city I moved back to, in Mountain View. So I am going to stick it out for a while and see. I mean, obviously, if David and I broke up, I would probably not be able to live here, so we will see how it goes. But I like the climate. I like the culture. I really like the ethnic mix out here is very cool and diverse. All right, so I'm essentially doing. Remember how I did? What was I doing it on? I was doing it on. I was doing side brushing on the wings. That's right. So I was using just the side of my brush to pick up some of this detail, you know, putting a very little paint on my brush and then just rubbing it over the surface on the sides so you have more control. It's kind of like dry brushing, but not. So I'm going to do that on this fur on the neck. Because it's sculpted well enough for the most part that I can at least pick up a little bit. I do need to thicken my paint though. You don't want really thin paint for side brushing. Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin, I do run into Midwesterners here pretty frequently. And there's a reason, darn it. Wisconsin winter. That's really all you need to say. There's a reason why Wisconsinites flee Wisconsin. And it's people like me who are not polar bears. Who just really can't take it anymore. Like, I moved to warmer climates as soon as I could. Every climate that I have moved to, like, both on the East Coast and on the South and in the West Coast now, has been a warmer climate. There's a reason for that. I don't need -40 without the wind chill anymore in my life. Like, no thank you. You Wisconsin people, you can just stay there if you want to, but no thank you. I think if I couldn't live here anymore, I'd move to Hawaii. I think that was what I had decided, because weirdly, Hawaii, if you move out from the big cities, is like doable on a not exorbitant salary. So I think I could maybe make that work. Let's see here. Winter equals mini painting season. Yeah, well, winter here is mini painting season too, Keldor. Because it's rainy a lot. It's a lot more rain in the winter. So that's my favorite, like, stay inside and get things done weather is actually rain. Born in Wisconsin, moved to Pennsylvania, then California, then back to Wisconsin. Yeah, I was born in California, moved to Wisconsin, moved to Maryland, moved to Texas, moved back to California. So there we go. We both did a loop, Heather. We just did totally different loops. My dad totally blamed me being born out here for me moving to California. He's just like, I should never have had you born in California. And I'm like, but I like it here. He should be happy. Like, now he has an excuse to come out and visit and go play golf in Monterey. He should not be complaining about my choice of living quarters. Nebraska to Texas 6 years ago. Yeah. I don't mind Texas summers. Yep. I mean, I was out there walking at 8 p.m. at 102 degrees for months. Image of a trail. So yeah, I can tolerate heat. Heat is okay. Yeah. Stayed around East Midwest-ish Gimli. Yeah. I find the culture is pretty consistent between those states. I really enjoyed living in Maryland, actually. Yeah, below 80 and you get out the jacket. Yeah, that's why it's taking me a while to adjust here, Miss Dimp, I will say. Just because I'm so cold sensitive. So, like, in the morning I go out and I'm like, oh my god, I need a sweatshirt or a jacket or something. And half of the city, at least the few bits of the city that are out and about in the morning, are like, you know, all in t-shirts. And I'm just like, no, this is way too cold for that. All right, I'm going to mix up some of my mint green, just because what I did here on the neck is I got too dark. You know, I got a lot of shadows in there. So putting the white over the top is giving me too stark of an effect. You should think about blending even on your textured areas. And I mean, you blend there the same way you blend anywhere, as you start with something that's maybe a little closer to your shadow and you go up from there. So essentially, I think my white is a little bit too different from the shadow colors that I had blacked in. So I'm going to bring in some of my mint green first. Think about it like when you apply a wash and everything goes darker and you kind of have to reapply your base coat a little bit before you highlight. That's what we're doing here. So I'm going to come in, and on these raised areas of fur, I'm ready to, too thick, too much paint on my brush. Oh no. There. Blorf. We need the blorf remote. Where's my blorf remote, Justin? Trashorama needs to give me a big paint blob. Yeah, I do. It is beautiful out here, Heather. I love that I can see mountains. I love that I can drive to the ocean in 40 minutes. Like, seriously. This is the kind of, because I love natural beauty and terrain. It makes me just happier with life in general. And there wasn't much of that in North Texas except for the amazing sunsets. Texas has amazing sunsets. It makes up for a lot. But yeah. Oh, well, you're just suffering through then, Sentimental. That works. Yeah, it was. Yeah, Maryland was also not cheap. You're right. Long underwear. Yep. Blorf. Yeah, I like the humidity here. It's actually a little drier than I like. At first, I expected it to be very dry, and then I was surprised at the humidity, and now I'm surprised that this. I don't know. This place continually surprises me. David swears I'm gonna like take the weather for granted, and I'm like, no way, man, you don't get it. I walk outside every morning and take a super deep breath, and I'm thankful for like the awesome weather. I did it every day in Texas where the weather was decent. I don't think I'm gonna stop here now. 63 and everyone's in shorts. Ugh. Hi, Trashorama. I summoned you. Please, can you make me a paint splooge, paint blorf, emoticon, or thingicon, graphicicon, whatever we call these dang things.
Emojis.
Emoji, that thing. Yeah, right. Because I blorf regularly and I always use that word. So we need a blorf. It's like a paint blob. And you should know who has summoned you, Trashorama, because, you know, I am the only person streaming at this time of day for Reaper. I assume that was a rhetorical question. It's your troublemaking Anne, of course. Let's see here. Hey, Valandar. And let's see here. Yeah, well, that's Wisconsin, right, Gimli? The minute it hits 60, everybody's in shorts. All right, so we got some minty green. We put some of it on our brush. If I'm trying to side brush a very small area, I don't put very much paint on my brush. See, just the tip, really. And then I'll just kind of, I'll pet the model. It's furry, right? So you're petting it. So just kind of lightly side brush the area with the tip of your brush. Pet the model. The model wants pettins. It's very fluffy. Kind of like Kiri. Just be real gentle and light with it. Like you're petting something tiny and fragile. Well, you are kind of. Tiny anyway. Bones is not terribly fragile. All right. Yeah, it's... I don't think California's going to be back to normal for a while. Or normal-ish. Some counties have flattened, but others have not. I'm just putting a little bit more shadow down here in the green, just to kind of blend in some things. So now our neck is getting a lot better. Now it looks more done. No, you're totally a rock star, Trashorama. You make our awesome little emojis. We are very thankful. Like, Justin's emojis would be stick figures, trust me. So we're happy. And he would never get time to make them.
Yeah, that too.
Because ReaperCon. I'm just going to add some more mint green up here. And once again, I'm just using the side of my brush. I'm kind of dabbing at the surface. Just to get some highlights in there. I mean, there'd be some shadows under these big old horns, too. And now I can come back in with some white and highlight this area a little bit more. Now that I've laid down some mint green, so I have a transition. I can get more light color there. There. Yay. And you know what? My face is very much lacking shadows on Spirit Beast, so we're going to do that. Hey, James. Turn into a pumpkin after 9. Sounds like me. I've had to adapt because David is a little more of a night owl. But I'm still, I pumpkin much earlier than he does. So I'm going to lay down some of my jade, my Tianzia jade, just to darken up. Because if you want white markings to show up better on a model, you definitely need dark to kind of contrast with it. And I haven't really tightened up this face yet, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to lay in more darks, bring the mask out that I put on the face of the fox. Kind of give him a darker area down the center of his face that's more consistent. There we go. And go and touch up this other side too. Hey, Chewy, thanks for that sub. A sub for the show is a vote for the show. And also, we are going to be doing some giveaways for our next AMA. So, a sub for the show enables us to get to our goal so we can give you guys paint. I need to ask Sadie if she'll make a special color for me for my giveaway, said Justin. I wonder if she would.
She might.
It depends. I only need
I imagine she probably would.
It's a fast to make color, so. But I really feel like I want it in the set. Because I know that I shouldn't put Pathfinder paint in the giveaway set because of the licensing. So that means I have to ask for special colors that, you know, I can't get by saying Pathfinder. At least that was the policy last time I asked with the is that Pathfinder was not good for giveaways. All right, getting this a little bit lighter. Bring a little bit more lightness here. I'm just tweaking at this point. I'm trying to make it look where I like it. So far I'm liking it here. I don't want to go too light with the fur underneath the belly. I want a little bit of highlight because light would reflect back up, especially if he's a glowy beast or if he is white, then reflected light picks up white really easily. I need to decide what I'm doing for this upper ridge area. I'm happy with the pink highlights, but I think I need more green in there. No, if I had to throw a special pink color in, remember this is the Anne set, so it's the colors I use all the time set. If I had to throw a special color in there, it would be the phthalo green. But if Sadie doesn't have time to make it, then she doesn't have time to make it, and that's it. I don't know how busy paint is these days, since I can't just stop in and take a look at the bin situation. There we go. I've darkened the dorsal spine area a little bit just by adding in some jade. It's hard to crack the whip from California, Gimli. Everything's pretty low-key. It's just like, you know, Sadie, make this color for me. Rawr. Not really. Plus, I know that, you know, I could try to crack the whip, but, you know, the real whip is in the hands of Ed and Dave, and so if paint is suffering, that takes priority for sure. Paint does tend to get easily buried. It is a department that is very volatile, so as far as demand goes, so you have to stay ahead of it all the time. You might think you're safe, and then the next week suddenly you're not safe anymore. All right, there, a little bit of a darker. I wanted a little bit of a darker stripe up there. Let's go in on that face now and put some blue in it. And we're not actually putting blue in it. We're just going to put some magenta over the areas that we want them to be blue. So let's see here. I'm pretty happy with the interior of the ear on that side. And this side needs a little darker though. So I'm pretty much just going to put heavy jade in wherever I want to darken, because then I can take a little bit of magenta and brush it over that and it will turn blue. Instead of mixing up the color, I can just layer the color. Oh, it wouldn't be for sale, Villamere. I would essentially, since that's a special release color, we kind of can't just like put it out on the market necessarily unless Ed okays it, and he's trying to kind of get paint managed better because we have so many bloated lines right now. So if I had her make it, it would be for my giveaway. So the special giveaway that we do for the AMA, I just have her make, just a tiny bit and keep it on hand, and would be a giveaway for my show. She got she got Sophie Silver and Rose Gold, so I think I should get a special color too. Don't you think so, Justin?
Completely agree.
Yeah, so. All right, so I layered some magenta into that ear where I put the green, and it's gone quite dark now, so that's happy. I'm going to grab some magenta here. I want to kind of accentuate some darkness around the eye, leading up to the ear. There's a bone that goes here, the occipital bone, I want to say, which is the top of the eye socket, and there's always a cut in underneath it in animals, or at least canines, and apparently vulpines. So if you can accentuate that shadow with fur coloration, it looks natural. Most of my Shilohs have had a dark stripe there. This is starting to look like Kiri. It's almost got her markings. I should probably stop invoking her name if I want her to stay asleep. Just want to separate out some of these tufts of fur. There we go. That's looking better. This side I still need more magenta on. What was the most sold produced paint? Oh, Cybestorm, Pure Black is by far our best-selling color. 9037. That is the most sold paint of all time at Reaper. I can guarantee it because it's still our top-selling paint, and it has been for over a decade. Because our black is really good. My favorite color changes depending on what I've recently made up, usually. And favorite is a hard word. It's like favorite color. Even though something might be my favorite color, I might not use it all the time. And there are colors that are like, that I do use all the time, but that I probably aren't showy enough to call my favorite color. That said, I use clear magenta and blue liner a ton. The new Orchid Purple that's coming out for Bones 5 Kickstarter is definitely one of my favorite colors. It's that raspberry purple that I use a lot, have used a lot. Although not so much on the show, because I like to give you guys something that you can actually, get your hands on when I'm doing this show. Mixing up a little bit of blue now because I want a little more of a solid blue here on the mane. And I'm just pretty much going to draw in some lines where I see bunches of fur to bring out those little parts. Coal black is cool, but I don't use it that often, Iggy. I don't know where I stuffed my holiday colors. I think the old Pro Paint line was around 60, Francis. And yes, they all got replaced. The old Pro Paint line was in paint pots. And what happened was that the company that Reaper previously worked with for paint went out of business. And Ed wanted me to make something that was in dropper bottles and more like, so it could compete with companies like Vallejo. So we went away from paint pots, which is good because, several years later, paint pots the company that had the molds for the paint pots completely canceled the molds. Like, because nobody wanted the bottles except us, so we weren't selling enough. So yeah, we went to Master Series, and everything now in production at Reaper that is paint came from Anne, except for the new colors that Sadie has done. So everything new from here on out, unless Reaper brings me in to consult on something, is going to be Sadie. Sadie and Ron and Ed. Probably in conjunction, because Ron is good at making up colors, and then Sadie, I trained her in color matching, and she does a great job of it. So the new paint will probably be a combination of efforts from those people. Anything new that comes out. Hey, Plater, thank you for the sub. And hello. Pure black is the blackest black, Gimli. It is our highest pigmented pure black. It has nothing else in it. All other blacks, except for Besmara, which is the Pathfinder black, all other blacks have other colors in them. So that they have a particular slide one way or another, or they're a little more visually complex. One of my things when I was paint line designer was that I never wanted to charge you guys twice for the same color. So I always made sure there was a difference between the different blacks and different whites. Yeah, I mean, it's probably settled out. Curico, it's not made with Master Series paint chemistry. It's a totally different base, totally different company. They were more latexy, so they may, chances are it settles out. And the fact that it's a paint pot actually makes the paint go bad faster. But the pot has a lot more of a looser seam around it, around the lid. It doesn't have a double closure like a dropper bottle does. The dropper bottle gives you better paint life because of that double closure, because it's got both a nipple and a cap. So essentially what that does is keeps your paint from going bad as fast, because air can't just leak in one way. It has to fight its way through two seals to leak in. So that's why dropper bottles keep your paint better for longer. Oh yeah, Twisted Oma. More than that, we were second, but now I believe we are third behind Bones and Dark Heaven. But paint is the third best-selling thing at Reaper, so I also was responsible for a great deal of Reaper revenue. Like, personally responsible. So that's pretty cool. That makes me happy. And you're right, it's a great legacy to leave the mini painting community. And it's not like my mad skills went away, so if Reaper ever wants me to come back and design a line or redesign a line, I'd be happy to do it. I enjoy line design. That's my favorite part of my old job, was figuring out like colors and making sure the line is useful, because it's not just making up a bunch of colors. You want to make up, you kind of want to balance the line to make sure you have enough of each color. You want to make sure the colors are high use colors so that you can imagine using them for lots of different things. They've got potential. You want to make sure you have a decent mix of bright and muted colors. And then there's certain things that you always want to have in the line. Like you definitely want to have some leather colors and things like that in the line if you're doing a fantasy line. Things to keep in mind like that. And then there's just the basic, figuring out what is this paint likely to be used for. And that's what informs your decision on like what base to use for it and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into good paint line design. It's not just picking colors. Oh, the tiny paint pots. Yeah, those go bad so fast, though. You really need to probably put some water in there. Because paint pots do definitely expire faster. So if you don't want your tiny little paint pots to go away or to dry up Motor City Ray, I would consider adding a little water to them. Unless you're just keeping them for posterity, where they'll be, archived for eternity. All right, so there we go. Now I have, like, actual markings on my fox face. Yay! I got a little bit too liney in here, though. I'm gonna grab some green and buff that out a little. These lines got a little too dark for the mane. So I could bring in some of my jade. And I can also take some white and go over those lines a little bit. I still want a suggestion of shadows, but you don't want it to be so regular. There we go. Much better. Just a conversation piece. All right, good deal. Yeah, I like the droppers a lot better. Solid black is actually a painter's black, James. It's mixed using brown and blue, like oil painters often mix black. So what that does is it just makes it a little bit softer and more visually complex. It's not quite as dead to the eye. There's a problem with coal black is that it's dead. It just sits there. Like your eye just wants to just look away from it. It doesn't have any life to it. And it also can add a very ashy tone to things. So when you use a more complex black, you can get away with black, but it's not, like, it's still interesting. It's hard to describe. It's a little bit warmer. Different painters definitely gravitate toward different blacks. Because when it comes down to it, if you have a dark paint on your model and you don't have pure black down on next to it, the dark paint will read as black anyway. So you can use almost any really dark paint as black if you never actually use black itself. But that's why oil painters use a mixture of brown and blue. Usually it's like burnt umber and ultramarine blue, I believe, to mix a custom black, is because then they get away from the whole black is a dead space on the canvas or the miniature. All right, let's do our side brushing thing over here on the side of the neck. I always had color as a superpower, Francis. Since I was little, I was good with color, and I experimented a lot with mixing. I was a very artsy child, so I had watercolor sets and stuff. My mom was artistic as well, so she made sure we had a bunch of stuff to play with. So I had paint by numbers with oil paint, and I had, watercolors and all that stuff. And I just had a really good eye for color from a young age. Color is my thing. It's kind of odd, but I've learned through actually living with David and painting with him that, different painters gravitate toward different things. Like, they have different things they latch onto. Like, for David, it's light. It's the first thing he looks for, is where is the light coming from? What color is it? And how is it influencing the model? That's the last thing I look at. The first thing I look at in an art piece is color. And that's the thing that I'm asking questions about in my head. And when we start a mini, we start it completely differently. He'll go light and I'll go color. So it's interesting just that, as we as artists gravitate toward different things in paintings. And it's not just what we do. It's actually when we're in an art gallery, it's the same thing. I'll notice a piece that has beautiful color and he'll notice a piece that has beautiful light. So it's interesting. Kind of look at yourself and see when you look at a piece and ask yourself, like, what am I liking about this piece? And that'll probably inform maybe, what you might have a flair for. Like maybe the way that you could take your art. After that, though, as beyond the instinctual part, when I joined up with Reaper as staff painter, one of my first job things was to create a paint line for Reaper that could compete with Vallejo. And so I took this very seriously, because I take everything seriously. Probably too seriously, and I probably went beyond what Reaper expected me to do, because I started reading articles on paint chemistry, and so that taught me a lot about why. That's all the stuff that I talk about to you guys about bases and acrylic resins and things like that. That's all stuff I learned when I was researching how to become a good paint line designer. So, learning paint chemistry wasn't strictly necessary for my job, because most of the chemistry and the construction of bases is done for you by the company you're getting your base from. But what it did is it taught me how to make the decisions about what is this paint used for? Okay, then I should use this base, not this other base. That's what it really informed, because learning about the paint chemistry gives you an idea of the properties of each base and why they work that way. So then when you need to make a translucent wash that's, this color and it's supposed to be applied this way, or maybe you're making this color and it needs to be mixable, or it needs to be glazable, or it needs to be whatever. Like, you got to ask yourself, how are people going to use this color? What's the most likely way they're going to use it? And then make it to that specification. It's why there are a lot of transparent colors in Master Series, because transparency is extremely useful. And sometimes it's what you need that color to do. Where if you want it, you know, if you're trying to glaze, if you're trying to get a nice subtle glaze or a really fine layering, you don't want that paint to cover. You don't want to have to fight it. You want it to go thin and, you know, be really easy to work with. And so you make decisions based on that if you're a good designer. If you're thinking of more than just, we want it to put it one coat coverage, right? If you're thinking of more than coverage, which I think if you're going to be a good paint line designer, you need to be. Because there's so many more techniques in the world. And if you want to get good at painting, you will inevitably start using thinner paint. Even if you're not like an expert, you can get good results just using techniques like I've been using on Spirit Beast here, where I'm using like the side brushing now, you know, things like this, where I do not want paint that's thick for this. I want it somewhat fine. Like this is thinned about 4:1. I want it heavy enough that it'll pick up this texture that I'm picking up on the side of my brush. But I want it, you know, also I need it fine enough that it's not going on in globs. If I used really thick paint for this, it would go on in globs. And that's not what I want. I want to just gently pick up this texture. So it's about that. And it was a lot of reading. I still read. From time to time, I'll get a question on chemistry. What's funny is that I ended up knowing more than my my paint company rep about some of the qualities of some of the paints, just because I'd had time to do more reading than he had. 4:1 paint to water. Mind reader. No, never. Okay, so never, ever, 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 ever are you going to go above 3 drops of water to 1 drop of paint with Master Series. This is intentional. With other paint lines that are very thick, like Scale 75 and Vallejo, you will have to load in a crap ton of water to get it workable. MSP is made so that you can thin the paint and get it to the consistency that you want fast without loading in all that water. You should never go above 3:1. And 3:1 is the finest glaze on the highest coverage paint. And I don't usually even hit 3:1. Like if I'm doing glazing and pure white, which is the highest coverage color we have, it's more like a 2.5:1. So if you hear me do a big ratio, like a 6:1 or a 4:1, it's always paint to water. And in fact, I still do paint to water. If I say 1:2, assume it's paint to water. Yeah, but just a note, because other paint lines you can actually load in that much water because they're just so thick. But Master Series is made to play a lot easier for you if you're trying to thin. Because I made it, and I made it to be like the paint line I'd always dreamed of, which turns out is very unusual in this market. So yeah, it's whenever you see a paint like this that is covering, like you can see that it's coming off my brush and it's lightening some areas. Assume it does not have a lot of water in it. In order for paint to really register brush strokes like this, it's got to be thicker, not thinner. But thicker is relative. Out of the bottle thick, I couldn't use this technique. And I'm just gently using the side of my brush. It's like dry brushing, but it's more controlled. You're using wetter paint. Like with dry brushing, you use paint full strength out of the bottle. And that's why you have to unload your brush so much, right? It's why you have to take all the paint off your brush until just the very bits are coming off. Because if you tried to do this, like without unloading your brush, and you tried to do it with full strength paint, all you would get is globs. So that's why when dry brushing, they tell you to do that. But then to get the paint off of your brush, you have to do this, right? Because there's almost no paint on there. So you have to use a stiffer brush, and you're really brutalizing your brush. So if you don't want to do that, you could do side brushing, which lets you thin your paint so you can get a more controlled, finer stroke, and use a brush that's good without wrecking it, because you're not drying it off. You're not forcing the paint to dry in the brush, essentially. That's why I prefer this technique. And now I want to put a little more water in there. My mint green is drying out a little bit. Honestly, Sidestorm, I put down like 6 or 7 drops of the metallic, and I put 1 drop of water in. Never more than 1. You should be fine with that. Yeah, Francis, that's it. So color is your thing then. It's what you gravitate toward, and it's probably what will be one of your talents in painting. So that means that you should definitely play with like paint mixing and play with like get some of the clear bright colors from Reaper and start experimenting. Because people who gravitate toward color, that and start like if you start paint mixing, you can really utilize your color fascination because then you start learning like which colors mixed make which other colors, and you know you can tweak colors to make them more interesting, use more saturated like colors in your shadows, or use different colors in your shadows like shading green with purple. People who are turned on by color love those things. So now I'm just blending up. I used some mint green and I side brushed it onto this fur here to make it a little lighter so I could bring in my white. So I could bring up a highlight on this area and make it not quite so dark as it was earlier. So this is kind of fine tuning how I'm doing on this model right now, guys, which I hope is instructive for you. Because at this point is the point where I'm trying to refine the model and make it look good across all of it. So I'm just gently kind of bringing out different things. Now, if I was doing really high level, I could absolutely take a little bit of my mint green and white and I could paint every hair, right? I could do the every hair thing if I wanted to. And if I was doing for competition, sure, I probably would. But I'm not. I just want it to look good, relatively good. And so I'm not taking that more time consuming. That's the technique that requires brush control, right? What I'm trying to do on this model instead is show you guys how you can paint a model really well without needing this crazy level of brush control to make it more accessible for you. Because something with texture like this is actually very simple to put a good paint job on, and you don't need that huge brush control, which can be very rewarding because when you're starting out at mini painting, you want wins. Like, it's just like with weight loss, right? You want to lose that first 5 pounds fast so it gets you motivated and keeps you on the diet. So for here, it's like painting something like this and using techniques like glazing, washing, side brushing can really give you an early win and make you excited because then it's more accessible to you. Like a high level paint job is more accessible to you. You can do a lot better than you thought you could. And that's always exciting. Like finding out you're good at something is the best motivator. And I think that almost anybody can be good at mini painting. I think most of the time we just aren't given the right tools. Like that we're tackling it from the wrong angle. Or there could be just a better angle for us to tackle it. You know, sometimes you just don't find the teacher that can kind of make things apparent to you, right? Because everybody, I mean, that's why there's so many self-help books out on the market, is everybody has a different take on it. And one person's take will make sense to this person, but not to another person. So it's the same thing with mini painting. That's why sometimes it's good to take lessons from different painters, right? Even if you're taking the same class, but you're taking it from a different painter, that can help you because maybe that first painter put it this way, so you got this part, but you don't really understand this other part. But then this other painter really lights up that other part for you, and you understand it finally. It's that's why it's like worth taking more than one blending class, because we all do it slightly differently. I'm just putting some magenta over my green to get that blue darker fade. I want magenta up toward the highlights, and I want the green down toward the shadows. Yeah. Yeah, Maharoon is good. It's just that you need to learn how the pigments interact, Francis. It's like learning things like, you know, that you can get a blue by putting magenta over a green, you know, but only certain greens. So it's, that's why I say pick up some clear brights and play with them. You gotta try to explore. Be open to exploration. That and, remember that very, very bright colors do not go with very, very grayed out colors unless they're in very small amounts. the muted versus saturated thing gets people into trouble a lot. And an experienced painter can easily circumvent it, but a beginning painter is often just sidewhacked by it, and then they get sad and think that they're no good at color, when actually that's not the case. So not only is there the color itself, or the hue, there's also the level of saturation or brightness, vibrancy of it. And generally, muted colors that are grayed out or dark or light go well with each other, and vibrant, bright colors go well with each other. And you have some leeway using the two together, but it can get very tricky. So if you want to not get into trouble, try to go with either a muted color scheme or a bright color scheme. Crispies, I went to freaking art school, and I learned more about color and art technique painting miniatures than ever I did in art school. So, just saying, don't cut yourself down just because you've only done painting minis. I mean, painting minis is an extremely effective education in art, in my opinion. That's why so many of us that are like high level, like Jessica Rich or Laszlo, have gone to 2D art, gone back to 2D art after they became master miniature painters, because now they get it even more than they used to get it, because mini painting was actually an excellent education in various aspects of artwork. So it's a thing. I want to put some shadows in around this fur. All right, Margaret, have fun. Don't wrestle too hard. Don't get clawed. I'm sorry, your cat is an angry kitty. About the vet. That can be rough. I've had angry kitties before. You always feel so bad about it. The other thing that people do wrong with color, Francis, is doing too many colors on the miniature. Just to continue color educating you, since you have mentioned that you need help. So like even with Oswald, I would probably stick to like 3 colors, 3 main colors, and then do a lot of neutrals, do a lot of browns, black, cream, do that sort of thing. You can keep yourself from getting in a color corner that way. Unless you want to go for the Rainbow Lich of Doom effect, on Oswald, then go for it. Your mini is your own. But painting him can also be an excellent instruction in how to utilize like a lot of colors to make him look colorful, but to still make the mini look good. Like not just like colors exploded on your palette. So depending on how you want to paint him. Painting a model with a lot of different areas can be very challenging for that reason. You're just trying to figure out, like, what color is this going to be now? Just doing my fur texture, short brush strokes in the direction the fur would actually grow. With my pure white that's thinned down probably about 3:1. 3:1 paint to water. Put the compliment over the top, Crispies. So what color is your Too Bright skeleton cloth? Let me know and I will suggest a color to put over it. Yeah, that's the nice thing, right, Twistoma? That's my hope, is that if I keep talking about this stuff, eventually you will absorb the knowledge, and then one day you will try to actually apply the knowledge, and then you will have success and you will be happy. That is my goal. Yellow and purple. Okay, so you're already using, first of all, you're using complementary colors, and when you do that, when you use complementary colors together, they naturally make each other look brighter. Be aware of that. So you obviously didn't want bright cloth, but when you chose those colors, it's going to make those colors intrinsically look brighter because they're next to each other. So I would take the yellow and thin it down to a wash or a glaze and put it over the purple. And then I would take just a tiny bit of purple. The purple over yellow can be harder. I probably would use a color like runic purple, which is really warm, and thin it way down and use it very lightly over the yellow. Yellow can be overwhelmed very easily. So with purple, you can be pretty heavy with a yellow wash over the purple. And essentially what that will do is when you use a complementary color over the top of its complement, it mutes it. So it makes it look more mild, more grayed out. As far as dirtying colors, I tend to use driftwood brown to kind of fade. I mix it in, or I glaze it, or I layer it over the edges to bring the color down as well. The color scheme generator. I love my color scheme generator, even when it gets me in color issues. So yeah, I would just put a yellow wash over the purple, and then with the yellow you could also just put a little bit of a brown wash over it to dirty it up. Just be careful about that. You don't want it to be looking too muddy. Dirtying always looks better when you do it purposefully. It depends on what level you're at too, though. If you're like a new painter, then I won't chat at you about using weathering techniques on your model. But in general, I try to avoid brown washes for dirtying because they just put brown everywhere, and it doesn't always effectively look like dirt. It just sometimes looks like a mess. Putting my little brush strokes down to get that furry effect on the brisket here. Our beast is coming together. It makes me happy. Well, Francis, what you do is you start out with, like, say, something like my random color scheme generator. You pick your first color. Instead of picking a bunch of colors together, pick your first color. Decide on one color that you absolutely must use on this model. Then work everything from that. And keep in mind that you don't want to go above... Normally, 2 colors is a great scheme. 3 colors is pretty awesome. 4 colors is where you're starting to get into the danger zone, depending on the model. Some models take to multiple colors schemes better than others. But the more main colors, like you almost always, if you look at main color, I mean a color that plays a significant role on the figure, that when you look at the model, you're like, oh yeah, that model is blue. It has a blue color scheme, or a blue and orange color scheme, or a orange and red color scheme. The colors that you look at the model and you see instantly are your main colors. And start with one and then go from there. Either pick a complement to it or pick one of the other colors in its triads. So if you're looking at red, red, yellow, blue is the triad. You could go with red and yellow, red and blue, or you could go red and green, if you want the complement. Start there, work outward from there. Because it's great to love colors, but you don't have to put everything on every model. And often it will be far more effective if you don't. So, like, maybe if you love all the colors, but make this model like a study in blue, or cooler colors, or make this model more of a fiery model with mostly warm colors, or, You can also, when you do this, it's like, don't think that picking 2 colors is limiting you. The thing that you will do then is to learn to work with neutrals. Or with more muted colors. Because when you're working with muted colors, you can have a blue and orange color scheme and still use several versions of these colors. This is something that I painted up as a Patreon example for a PDF that I'm finishing. And essentially it's using orange and blue, but different oranges and blues. So we've got a blue-gray and a dark blue and a brownish orange and a dark brown. And, I'm going to come in with a leather color over here, which is a different orange. And then I've got, a yellowy color, yellowy brown color here as a basis for the NMM. So I'm working with the same 2 colors, but it'll end up looking very differently because I'm using different versions of those muted versions of those colors. Muting essentially takes a color down from just being a bright primary, and then it opens up all of your opportunities for just getting a very interesting color scheme out of only 2 colors. Yeah. Oh, my video demos are all over the place. Yeah, maybe I'll do weathering in my Patreon next month. Yeah, that's a Big Child Dwarf mini. They sent him out when I ordered the Monkey King from their last Kickstarter because they were late with their Kickstarters. They were sending out apology minis. I was happy because he's a good demo mini. But right now, he's actually going into my Dungeon Dwellers demo PDF. Color wash. Okay, so if I say color wash, it's not an official term, Strange. It's really just my way of saying, use a very saturated color and apply it in a wash to either brighten or to mute another color. So when I'm talking about using like purple, like yellow over purple in a color wash, I'm saying use a very saturated yellow if you've got a very bright purple and apply it in a wash over the purple. And what it will do is it will dull down the purple if you feel the purple is too bright. The other thing you can use it for is to brighten things. So if you painted a cape red and you use like a whole bunch of different reds and it's not bright enough for your taste and you want it more intense, then you would use a very saturated red like our clear red, which is just red pigment in a clear base. And you would put a glaze or a wash of that over the top of your red cape and it would make it brighter red. So you can use it to intensify or detensify colors depending on what you want. So I've got there's a lot of rocky terrain back here. This was a very smoothly muscled hind leg. This is more rough. So I'm actually going to make a glaze. I'm going to make a glaze of white, which is the hardest glaze to do because it's so opaque. So you have to thin it down so much and you want to really apply it fast. But essentially I want to take up this mint green a bit and blend in these brush strokes. So I'm going to just take it and I'm just going to brush it over the surface, all over the place, all down the leg. And over these muscles. And then I'm going to come back and anywhere I see excess, I'm going to kind of suck it off with my brush. I want to do it before it dries, so I need to get in here like fast. And that should essentially blend in my brush strokes, see, as it dries. It has lightened my mint green areas so that those brush strokes blend in a little bit easier. Because you can see the original mint green up here, and you can see all the rest of the mint green has gone a shade lighter. So that's what glazing does for you. It unifies areas, but you got to be careful about it, because if you go too heavy with it, you're just going to wipe out all your work. So the point is to put a very thin layer of the color over the top of what you've done. Do not let it pool. So always come back with your brush right away, clean out your brush, and come back and get away some of those pools. And then it should help to blend in your brush stroke and get you where you're going. Swedish Fish Red. And you can't get that with a paint Motor City Ray because it's utterly... Part of the reason the Swedish Fish Red is so bright is that it's transparent. Light passing through something will make it appear more vibrant. That's why old style inks, which were dyes instead of pigments, were brighter because they're absolutely transparent. And so they appeared more saturated when you used them to glaze or wash over a mini. Pigment, being particulate, blocks the light more, and so it can never quite aspire to that level of vibrancy once you put it on the mini, because the light just isn't passing through it. It's not bouncing around in there. It's just reflecting off of the pigment surface. We're just kind of blocking in our white. Got our white hind leg going on. Is it intentional that there are 2 royal purple triads? I probably screwed up. Planer. Or somebody else screwed up. The first one is probably Imperial purple triad, right? And then there's a later one, the 9238. We just need to change the name then if we've screwed up the names on it. Because the one has royal purple as a color actually in it. The later one. And the first one is Imperial, Nightshade, and Amethyst. So I want this area to be white, guys, so you are noticing that I'm building it up in multiple layers to get it to be white. And that's how I like to do white, is start with the shadow and build it up. And especially on textured areas like this, where there's fur, I think it's a very rewarding way to do white, because you can get that fur texture in there with your layers. There we go. All right. And now I want the rear part of this leg. And then we'll be ready to put the tail on. Yay. See, now you see my evil plot, is I really wanted to get this stuff put on because otherwise I couldn't attach to the tail. Because the tail blocks so much. And that's the rule, by the way, for those of you who are new. When you're asking yourself, should I glue this together and then paint it? Or should I paint it and then glue it together? The answer is look at it and decide if you can attach the things without blocking, without making something else really hard to paint. If you can attach the item and everything is still easy to reach, go ahead and attach it. Like if you're attaching a hand with a sword, you know, and it's held out in front, it doesn't really block you from easily painting something, go for it. But with this tail, totally blocks the entire front. Like I would have a hard time. Here we go, tail. So I would have a hard time with anything around here or getting at the back here. It'd be fine on this side, but I really just wanted to get rid of it or get it settled before I went in. So I've got to paint the rear a little bit quick. Fur would come out to the side. Painting the rump. I'm making you stare at Spirit Beast butt. Oh no. Get little hawks here. Make them bright because they're hitting the light. So this area needs to be lighter. There we go. Yeah, exactly. That totally, Well, it just depends, James, because you're excited to assemble, but at the same time, it's like when it makes you have more angst about painting, then it's a double bad, because then it's like, you know, well, now I'm unenjoying this other part of the process, right? I honestly think that's sometimes why a lot of really avid modelers don't like the painting, don't like process. They like to just put together the models and they don't like painting, is that they've made it harder for themselves. And so painting then has a frustration level attached to it. And the minute that something has a frustration level attached to it, as a human, you just don't want to go there, right? You'd rather be doing something that you enjoy. It's your free time, for God's sakes. So don't set yourself up for failure. Do kind of look at things beforehand. You will always get to assemble it at the end, and then you feel even more accomplished because then it's fully painted by the time you fully assemble it. So let yourself try to do the other way around and see if you enjoy the whole process better. All right, that's excellent. All right, look, hey guys, look, we've got a Spirit Beast. Like, he's all like good, except he doesn't have spots on one side. One thing I did want to talk about with the antlers too. And we're almost done. I just do the gap filling mist imp, honestly. Because it's gap filling holds no fears for me. Like it's honestly, it's fairly easy. I put some little green stuff or something in, I smoosh it down, I blend it in, I let it set, and I paint over it, and it's all good. So I don't really mind. I just deal with the gap filling because otherwise the answer would be again to not enjoy my hobby. I would much rather deal with a bit of gap filling, which I find sometimes honestly fun and rewarding, than to hate my hobby because I can't paint effectively an area that I really want to. Trashorama, sound effects while painting are absolutely encouraged at all times. I had friends who, when I left Wisconsin, one of them is actually my friend, actually is one of my patrons, although I don't know if she watches the stream. But when I left Wisconsin, I had my gamer friends complain because they missed my sound effects. So there you go. All right. So one thing I did learn about elk antlers when I was studying them yesterday is that they are lighter toward the tips. So if we want these to be elk antlers, this means that we must do something about that. And maybe we need to lighten them more toward the tips. And I think I need my driftwood brown because that's what I was using yesterday. Where are you, driftwood brown? Is that you? That's you. Mist Imp, that's just, you know, if you're using colors, I mean, obviously I'm using a very limited palette here, right? So I'm only using the greens, the magenta, the black, the white. Of course I'll get the paint to match. I've only used a couple colors to paint it, so getting the paint to match is easy. And if you have trouble remembering what you used, a lot of my Paint Club people have started to keep just a little book or a little notebook or whatever, and they'll put a swatch down and they'll put a note on what they used on the model. That's really effective. It's a habit that you need to establish, but once you have it, and it's not hard to build it, I mean, just keep the notebook next to you while you're painting. And that way you'll never have a problem. So let me see what I can do here. I want to kind of glaze this, so I'm going to thin it way down. Let's see how thin I can get it. Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, we'll see how I can do. But yeah, that's too thin. Too thin. I can tell because it's just like breaking down. It's not really coloring the surface. It wants to go into cracks and stay there. So if I can paint over the top of it and it goes lighter, then I'm a lot happier. So I want these edge areas of these antlers to be lighter. Lighter toward the tips. So I'll just put a glaze at first, and then I'll come back and do more specific highlights. But I want more of a fade like that. Yeah, Anki's got a good idea, and I've seen people at Paint Club do that too. Is just take a photo of the model next to the bottles they used. Yeah, and there's apps for that too. Trouble is right. There are apps that will help you to track your colors you use for each project. So whatever works for you, really. I like analog stuff, so I tend to like keep notes, physical notes. Although these days, I do, because I made the paint line, I do have the superpower of generally looking at the color on the model and knowing what I used. So there is that. I do cheat on occasion. But yeah, the photo's good. Yeah, and Excel works too. Like if you really like using the spreadsheet stuff, and I can totally see that, because on occasion I do. I like spreadsheeting my writing. So then, yeah, Excel is totally valid. And that, it also takes up a lot less room, right? You don't have to search through a bunch of photos if you're using an Excel file. You just have to look for the name of the miniature, and then you've got your paints right next to it. So it's very efficient. Blend in this sucker. So like that's making a nice fade on those horns. Any organizational tool will work as long as you're consistent with it. Let's see here. Now I want to do a little bit more of a highlight. I need more white. Need more white in it. Need it to be a little bit more opaque. Still too thin. I'm much happier with this spirit beast now. I feel like we can tackle the tail. I didn't quite get to the underside of the wings. Now I'm taking some white with that kind of pinkish gray that I mixed up here. This is driftwood, magenta, a little tiny bit of black. It's essentially a lighter version of the color that I used for the horns. So I used that to glaze, and then I mixed white into it to just hit the very tips of these antlers, which should give me the faded out effect that I want at the edges. Yeah, kind of like that. And if I feel like I need a little bit more of that, I can grab my original kind of glazy thing and bring some of it down further into the horn. There, like that. So essentially I'm glazing a lighter color over the outer parts of the horns to make them look pretty like that. Hopefully you guys can see that. Here, let me get this out of the frame. Ah, it actually was better under the palette. Here. I'm going to try to get this in focus. Focus, focus, focus. There. So you can see how it kind of fades from this dark on up to that that light area. I think I like that effect, and I'm going to repeat it on the rest of the antlers. Looks magical. Like it. All right, we got a lot done today, actually, on our Spirit Beast. He's looking pretty good. Pretty happy with him. So we need to deal with the tail, which I think I'm going to use some magenta on, because I'm using some magenta up here. So we might go with some pinks down here. And here we're probably going to do it a lot like I did the wing. And yeah, she's coming along very well. I'm happy with our pretty little Spirit Beast so far. And it's been nice to have you guys along on the Spirit Beast journey. Maybe tomorrow we'll do a base for her. Since I've done almost everything else and you guys don't necessarily need to be along on the rest of the Spirit Beast journey, tomorrow maybe we'll make a base. I need to dig out a plastic base that I can put her down on.
I love those antlers, Anne.
Oh yeah?
Those are nice, yeah.
They're coming along. They're coming along. I need to do the fade, on everything. But then, yeah, then I'll highlight a little bit down on the underside because you always want to do a little bit of work. But yeah, I think they're coming along. I'm happy with the beast so far. And then, we've got, once our wings go on, then that also gives us a different effect. And this is one, actually, since we were just talking about it, this is one where I'm painting things and I'm going to have to gap fill, right? You can see it. Like either I'm going to have to gap fill, either way I'm going to have to gap fill the top. Like I can see there's going to be a gap no matter what. And I'm just going to deal with it. Like it just means I won't do a lot of work right around here, right around this split. And I'll glue it in and I'll take some green and I'll just kind of smush it down and then I'll touch it up. I know here that I used phthalo green and white on both, or the jade and white on both sides of the divide. So it's going to be very easy to just paint over it. And then on the underside, it's going to be much the same because I'm going to be using the mint green and white for the underside of the wings. So when I go to fill that gap, that's also going to be pretty easy to match. So I'll try to fit it on in the best way that gives me the most leeway. I'm also going to shave off a little bit of this connection point because part of the problem I find with bones is often that this tab part is a little bit too long or too thick. So if I take my knife or a side cutters and I just cut off, make it a little bit more shallow, often I can get this to marry up a lot better than it looks right now. Like I bet just by trimming down this tab, I'll be able to make this this front gap go away. Like I'll make it sit a lot deeper. So always try that with your bones. It's super easy. It just takes a couple seconds to really shave off some of that area. And then you just retest it and you shave it off a little more. You kind of figure it out, right? I had to do this on the Dance of Death Dragon's wings to make them fit a little bit better onto the model. So yeah, I can do that on stream. Let's see here. Yeah, we could do that whole fill. We could do gap filling next week or next. Sorry, maybe we'll do gap filling tomorrow. I guess the problem is I need the wings to be painted first before I do that gap filling. So we might have to do wings fast tomorrow, and then do the gap filling toward the end of the stream. Then might not get to basing till Monday. Monday might be a basing day, or maybe terrain Tuesday. I need to find another model to paint. I have a few.
Reminder, this Monday you have it off.
That's right. So Monday is not a thing. Yes. I would figure that out eventually, Justin.
No problem. Also, I have a raid ready for us.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Twisted Doma, walking in the clouds, probably not an option. I'd have to use cotton for that, and I don't think I have cotton right now to make that really carry off.
Thank you for the gifted subs, Malin.
Yeah, wow. Thanks, Malin. We're getting... Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. Model in question is Argent. Yeah. Even with shaving the post down, sometimes, yeah. I haven't worked with Argent, so I'm not sure, but I believe it because he's such a chunk, Missed Imp. On one of the posts on Dance of Death, I did have to pretty much cut it off and pin the wing in the end to get it to go well. Alrighty, thank you everybody. Yes, it's official Taslanch. Yeah, Monday is not real. It's totally fictional. Aw, too bad, Malin. That's all right. Yeah, Argent is huge. It's true. Yes, thank you everybody. Spirit Beast says, "Yay! Look at me, I'm getting fully painted. Yay!" So thank you for hanging out, and I will be back tomorrow, and we'll do something. I don't know. We're gonna do something. We're probably still gonna be fighting with these spirit wings. If you want me to show you how to putty them, then I'm gonna have to get them painted in order for us to do that. So, alrighty, excellent, James. I'm glad you learned. That is my goal. Totally, it is my reason.
So we are going to be rating our great channel friend Sky Daddy.
Oh wow.
The body painter.
Oh, cool. Yes.
She's doing a Chitara today. So are you a Thundercats
Ooh,
fan?
I'm a total Thundercats fan. Oh my god, I grew up on Thundercats.
Awesome.
Yes, all right. Awesome. Well, I'm going to have to go and watch then. Awesome. Okay, well, pass along the love to her, guys, because she's such a good artist. Oh my gosh, her body art. Hey, and she'll be doing spots just like I did. So you can see how she does spots on a bigger model herself.
There we go.
All right. Bye, guys.
Awesome, guys.
Have fun. See you tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Spread the Reaper love. Keep being awesome. And tell Sky Daddy we said hi. See you guys. Oh, painting platinum this afternoon. It is on for today. Sadie will be there. So thank you guys. I'll see you at 3 p.m. Central Time. There we go.